Good morning, my friends. What a day. Kind of wrapping up a day. Wanted to talk to you today about electric vehicles. Horace Dodge and John Dodge, Henry Ford, David Buick, and a few folks you might not have heard of, like Florence Lawrence and Effie Hotchkiss. Well, if I've got your attention, let's start with the reason for this conversation. You know, I work with the Historic Electric Vehicle Foundation a bit, where they're putting together the world's first EV museum here in Kingman, Arizona. And it's really funny, the political climate we're in. Something as simple as an electric vehicle can be so divisive. It's pretty amazing. And it dawned on me that part of the reason this is divisive is ignorance. And ignorance is not to be confused with stupidity. Those are two different things. But a lot of people aren't aware of the role of electric vehicles in automotive development history or societal evolution. My pa said it was better to fill the head with useless knowledge than no knowledge at all. Did you know that the first person struck and killed by an automobile in the United States was a fellow named Henry Bliss? Is it Harry Bliss? Henry Bliss. Struck and killed by an electric taxi cab in New York City in 1898. Give that some thinking. And at the same time, we had electric buses on the streets of New York City. Well, that's pretty darn astounding. You know, Studebaker, if you're a classic car buff, you're pretty familiar with the name Studebaker. And Studebaker built some pretty fantastic automobiles. Quirky styling that I happen to like, some durable trucks and a few other things. But you know that time when Studebaker started, their first vehicles they produced were electric vehicles. So, you know, what I wanted to do this morning was, we like to tell a story, share America's story specifically. So I thought I'd talk to you a little bit about the origins of the American auto industry and, well, I guess you might even say the U.S. highway system. The story really begins with manure, not just politics, I mean actual manure, and bicycles. That's the origins of this thing. In 1885, a fellow named Starling came up with a modern bicycle. Before that, we'd had the penny farthing bicycles, the ones with a big front wheel, small back wheel, the perfect device for getting in shape while committing suicide. But even with those big bikes, the big penny farthings, bicycle racing, all these things became kind of a fad. But with the advent of the modern bicycle, about 1885, the United States was consumed with bicycle mania. It was a worldwide phenomenon, but we're focused here on the American version of this. And it's interesting that the sales pitch for bicycles would be almost identical to the one used by like Ransom E. Olds when he started pushing and advocating for automobiles. Basically, it was this. A bicycle was cheaper to purchase, own, and operate than a horse. And it was an ideal and perfect for urban transportation. Some people took it a bit further. Bicycle clubs formed. Dozens and dozens, hundreds maybe, of bicycle clubs. In the 1890s, most obscure places you can imagine. Prescott, Arizona. Bicycle clubs formed and toured to the Grand Canyon. A fellow named Lovejoy in Laramie, Wyoming, started with bicycles. He rode a bicycle to the Panama Pacific, the World's Fair in Columbia Exposition in Chicago, about 1893, was it? And anyway, we went from like 40 companies manufacturing bicycles to 400 plus in just a couple years, roughly 1889 to 1895. Bicycles, personal transportation. Linked with this was a lot of problems with bicycles. There was legislation that prohibited use of bicycles on public streets and all kinds of restrictions, much like what happened with the automobiles later. So the League of American Wheelmen was formed as a lobbying organization, as well as to promote tourism and bicycle usage and all these different things. And there was even a League of American Wheel Women. But linked with this was a severe urban crisis. All the major cities were being inundated. New York City even did a report on this. It was dubbed the manure crisis. On the streets of New York, there was tens of thousands of pounds of manure being taken off the streets every month. Then there's the urine. Then there's literally dead horses being left on the street, sometimes for a week before they can be picked up and recovered. Definitely not a healthy situation. Definitely not a sustainable situation. And we complain today about all the noise. Would you trade the noise for the stench? Is a question. Well, bicycle advocates had done pretty well selling the personal transportation aspect. But how do you replace horses for taxi service, for freight hauling in the cities? Well, people like Ransom E. Olds, they thought they had the idea. The automobile was the solution for the pollution. Now, how ironic is that? And initially, we had 1893, the Duryea brothers up in Springfield, Massachusetts. They became the first manufacturers of automobiles in the United States for sale. And they were gas-powered cars. But other companies saw a better solution in urban areas, the electric vehicle. And so you had companies like Woods out of Chicago started producing buses and taxi cabs. Woods would go on and survive, outlive a lot of the electric car companies. And I believe it was 1915 or 16, they introduced the Woods dual power. And this was a it was basically a four-cylinder gasoline electric hybrid in 1916. But the electric vehicles, Ferdinand Porsche, he started his automotive endeavors with electric vehicles. Competing with electric vehicles were steam. And as the Jackson Automobile Company in Jackson, Michigan put it, steam was understood. It had been around for almost a century, and people understood how steam worked. Today, this kind of advertising wouldn't go over very well either, but gasoline cars, powered cars, were very, very difficult to start and maintain. Electric cars were ridiculously easy. Steam cars were complicated in the sense of having patience, lighting the boiler, not setting yourself on fire, and building a head of steam. This is quite offensive today for obvious reasons, but the Jackson Automobile Company, when they came in 1903, they advertised, they had two cars. The JACKSON was their gasoline-powered car. JAXON was their steam-powered car. And the Jackson steam car was advertised as a car so easy to operate, a child or even a woman could drive it. There's a great museum, by the way, in Spring Arbor, Michigan, the old carriage shop, Lloyd Ganton. It's a private museum, and but he opens up on a regular basis if you contact him. He has a collection of automobiles manufactured in Jackson, Michigan. And gosh darn it, over the years there was something like 24, 25 different automobile manufacturers in Jackson. That takes us to another thing I wanted to talk about. The diversity. This is a book that was published many, many years ago. I don't know if it's been reprinted. It's not a cheap book if you can find a copy. But this, and you can tell it's quite thick. This is just the research that went into this in the pre-interstate era. This is back in the 80s. But you have the manufacturer's list price and information on all automobiles manufactured in the United States before 1942. And there were literally hundreds and hundreds of automobile companies. Very, very diverse. Electric cars, the demise of electric cars came about The big killer came in about 1912. That's when Cadillac introduced an electric self-starter on their vehicles. And that really eliminated a big problem, which was crank starting and things of that nature. The more budget cars like Model T Fords, they didn't offer electric starting, I think, till 24 or 25. There were aftermarket kits where you could put electric starters on there. Now, I did a disservice a little bit. I teased you about John Dodge and John and Horace Dodge and Henry Ford. So let me explain these connections just real quick. The early years of the automobile industry are so fascinating. There's so many diverse companies' ideas about the future of the automobile, what it would look like. And it became kind of a gold rush atmosphere. It's really astounding how fast we adapted to automobiles. Like say 1893, the Duryea brothers came up with the first practical automobile that they were manufacturing for sale. 1896, 95, 96, Barnum and Bailey Circus gave the Duryea motor wagon top billing at the sideshow over the fat lady, the dog-faced boy, and the albino. And Montgomery Ward said it was a fad you needed to take the children to see before it passed. By 1898, we had the first automobile race in Chicago. And in 1900, we had the first automobile show in Madison Square Gardens, New York. And there were more than 25 companies manufacturing showing their wares, their cars. It became a gold rush, the first decade of the 20th century. Every community wanted to become the auto capital. I mentioned Jackson. Jackson had an industrial base. They built, farm equipment, a lot of different things in Jackson over the years. But more than 20, 25 automobile companies. Even Buick had a brief stint 2 different times in Jackson. There's a personal connection to that. David Buick had a machine shop in the late 1890s in Jackson, Michigan. My grandfather, Frederick P. Hinckley, was a machinist for David Buick there in Jackson, Michigan. That's during the period when he invented the coaster brake for the bicycle. Another bicycle connection. But it's really interesting when you get into the people stories behind the cars. For example, I mentioned Henry Ford. The Ford Motor Company was really, I believe, the 3rd attempt for Henry to start a company that was successful. His second company, the Henry Ford Motor Company, the investors got impatient because Henry was more interested in experimentation and tinkering and things of that nature. And they wanted something they could sell for the profit, make some money on. And Henry Leland was a leading machinist, precision machinist in Detroit area during these years, 1900, 1, 2, 3, right in there. He'd apprenticed with Samuel Colt, famous for Colt firearms. And he brought his expertise to Detroit. And he'd come up with a pretty advanced engine and started shopping for buyers. And Ransom E. Olds was going to buy it for a new generation of Oldsmobile, but Olds suffered a pretty devastating factory fire, and so did not have the funds for investment. And Henry Ford's backers included the mayor of Detroit, I believe a fellow named Murphy. And Leland showed them the engine. They liked it. And I'm paraphrasing here and giving you the Reader's Digest condensed version. But when they brought in Henry Leland with his engine and hired him as a consulting engineer, Henry Ford was incensed. He was just really angry. And as the story goes, he demanded his name off of the building and wanted $800, and he walked out the door. So they had Ford's chassis, his work that he'd been done. I understand the gearbox, the Dodge brothers, John and Horace, had a foundry machine shop, and they were building like gearboxes, different things for companies. So I understand that the first gearbox in this was built by Dodge, But they reorganized the company, and they named it after the Frenchman who had established Detroit, a fella named Cadillac. So Henry Leland played a role in the establishment of Cadillac, and so did Henry Ford in a roundabout way. My pa said the wheel bearings connected the muffler in a roundabout way. Henry Ford and Henry Leland would meet again after World War I. Henry Leland had left Cadillac after it had become sucked into General Motors conglomerate a few years after that. And he started another company building aircraft engines for the government during World War I at the onset of that. And he named it after the first president he voted for, which was Abraham Lincoln. And he was such a perfectionist, his company had some problems in the post-World War I recession, economic recession. And Henry Ford picked up the company, and he put his son kind of in charge of it, a fellow named Edsel Ford. And you thought Edsel was just a car that looks like a Buick sucking a lemon. See, there's somebody behind that. John Dodge and Horace would go on and do their own thing, but that would be 1914. In the meantime, John Dodge became the vice president of Ford Motor Company for a bit. And that had to be a challenging situation. And David Buick, well, every time, that poor guy, every time his ship came in, he was down at the train station. He just kept missing things all his life. Doesn't mean he wasn't brilliant. He was a Scotch immigrant, came to the country and started a plumbing business, a few other things. One of his early claims to fame, he patented the method for fixing porcelain to cast iron bathtub. And then he came up with a valve and head engine and Buick Motor Company, which became the cornerstone for General Motors. And I can't leave you hanging. I mentioned Florence Lawrence. We'll talk about her more on a future program, but she was one of the first superstars of the silver screen. And she was also a passionate automotive enthusiast back 1905, 6, 7, 8. And unfortunately, she didn't patent a lot of her devices, but she's credited with coming up with things like the brake light and turn signals. And she started one of the very first successful mail order parts catalogs, kind of like the old J.C. Whitney, if you're old enough to remember that. So she was quite a go-getter too. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this because, gosh dang it, I don't know why we've got to let everything be so divisive, and especially why we're letting people that profit from causing divisions, why we're giving them such power here. But I've caught a lot of flack because I'm doing stuff with the Historic Electric Vehicle Foundation. I've caught some real serious flack from folks, and I'm surprised. Why in God's name they're not doing their homework? And second of all, why are we letting people that make money and profit from us by creating division? Why are we giving that much leash? Sure as hell can't understand that. A couple things I wanted to tell you too while we're here. Route 66 Sentinel magazine, really new publication. Michael Wallace, Reese Martin, some really great people involved. And now you're looking at the new Western Regional Correspondent. I wrote my first piece, which will be out of the next issue, about the Film and Celebrity and Sports Celebrity Association here in Kingman, Arizona. Pretty neat publication. You can find more about this on the Jim Hinckley's America website and Facebook page. I got one more, so bear with me. This is a sample of a project kiosk that we developed for Kingman Tours a couple years ago. This was a brainchild of Kingman Main Street. I was honored to be a part of this. I did the narration and I did most of the historic research. And it was brought to life through Talisman Magic Marketing. And the city of Kingman was involved, Historic Route 66 Association of Arizona. One of the first things about this project that I was really impressed with is the key to economic development to tourism, to turning your community into a destination, is building a sense of community and community purpose. This project got people to work together who have made a career out of not playing well with others. It's impressive. Anyway, Kingman Tours Project, it's real easy, www.kingman.tours. It's a virtual tour as well as a narrated, self-guided historic district walking tour here in Kingman. But it's much, much more. Take a look at the website, like I say, kingman.tours. Talisman Magic Marketing just gave the website a full facelift. Pretty darn impressive. And now there's a links site, kind of linked in a hand-in-glove kind of fashion, of visitkingman.com. I'm impressed. Talisman Magic Marketing's knocked it out of the park again. This website is a full tourism visiting, planning a tour to Kingman. You can build an itinerary, lodging, restaurant, everything is here. It's also a relocation guide, event calendar. Just amazing what's packed into this thing. So take a look at that too. Visit kingman.com. My friends, I want to thank you for joining me today. If you liked this, learn a little about automotive history, well, drop me a note. I'd sure like to hear from you. And maybe we can get together again and talk about cars. Because I sure like telling the American story. And the American auto industry is full of great stories, like the Patterson-Greenfield Automobile Company. The only company I'm aware of that was established, developed, and managed by an African-American family. Pretty impressive. Another great American story. My friends, I'm going to get back in there. I've got some stuff I want to button up. It's been a pretty good day. Went out with a sunrise walkabout. Worked in the garden for quite a while. And then I cut all the brush and weeds around the house. And took care of some emails. Got the next episode of Coffee with Jim up on the YouTube channel for our live stream. It's scheduled. And published a recorded program on Coffee with Jim, our Podbean website. And finalized arrangements yesterday with Steve Reyes to be part of the Pioneer Day celebration on October 16th, 17th, 18th, that weekend. I think it's the 90th anniversary of Pioneer Days over in 29 Palms, California. I'll be there in October. Anyway, for more updates and information, JimHinckley'sAmerica.com, Jim Hinckley's America Facebook, Jim Hinckley's America on Substack, Jim Hinckley's America on Facebook and Instagram, YouTube channel, and telling people where to go, sharing America's story. It's what we do. We're trying to build a whole community of people that are just as passionate as we are for road trips and discovering America with road trips. Hey, thanks for letting me beat my gums this morning. Thanks for joining us. And I'm going to pull the plug on this and go look for something to eat. My friends, take care. Like and Dios mío amigos. Drop me a note. I'd like to hear from you. Talk soon.
Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a 2-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.